Hello everyone, it is Obscure Nick here with a new video, and today we are going to discuss one of the most dangerous amusement parks that existed in America. It had illegal and dangerous activity that was happening inside it, and that is Action Park. So let's get into it. Okay, so Action Park was an amusement park located in Vernon Township, New Jersey in the US, on the grounds of the Vernon Valley Great Gorge Ski Resort. Action Park was split into three separate areas: Alpine Center, Motorworld, and Waterworld. The park had Eugene Muehl and his company Great American Recreation. They already owned the ski resort prior, so they wanted to get revenue within the summer. So they created the first ever modern North American water park. Here is a promo clip of Action Park.
There's nothing in the world like Action Park, where you're the center of the action. It's bigger and better than ever, something for everyone looking for fun. Get ready for the action.
Catch the action with over 50 rides, shows, and attractions at the world's largest participation park, where you and the rides become one. You're just minutes away.
There's nothing in the world like Action Park.
Now let's talk about the incidents that happened that had people pass away. The first death that happened was an Alpine Center attraction on a ride called the Alpine Slide. Riders sat on a small sled that had only a brake accelerator control stick and rode down on the slide in long chutes built into the slope. This ride had a state record between 1984 and 1985. The Alpine Slide produced 14 fractures and 16 head injuries. The most shocking incident happened on July 8th, 1980. A 19-year-old George Larson Jr., who was an employee at Vernon Valley, was riding the Alpine Slide when his car jumped the track and hit his head, struck a rock, killing him. In 2020 documentary Class Action Park, I did not watch this documentary by the way prior, but I will check it out later. Larson's mother and brother claimed that George wasn't even an employee. They accused park management of using the story of Larson being an employee previously to get out to report the death. Eugene lied about this. And I find it weird that they were just covering it up like that. I think it's just because they wanted to protect the business. They were scared to be shut down. It was still a new park at the time. To protect their business, they just lied about that. And they totally covered the death in some form. And that happens to be a pattern throughout. The next incident happened on July 24th, 1982. A 15-year-old boy drowned in a tidal wave pool. This tidal wave pool opened in 1981. The pool replaced softball fields that occupied the location previously, and this tidal wave pool had hold 500 to 1,000 people. Waves were generated from 20 minutes at a time to 10-minute intervals between. There were 12 lifeguards around at all times, and they were on weekends when it was super busy. They were known to rescue over 30 people. It had a reputation of being known as the grave pool because on August 26, 1984, a 20-year-old from Brooklyn, Donald D. Pass, drowned in the same pool. And then another one with an 18-year-old, George Grandchamps, drowned in that tidal wave pool on July 19, 1987, 3 years later. It was apparently not always obvious when the pool would increase the waves, and it made it hard to see if someone was drowning or if someone was having fun, especially when the waves were going full blast. Also, a person on Defunct Land's video on Action Park, which I really recommend you check out, which got me into this whole thing, put a comment saying that how the lifeguards did not know what was happening to his friend because his friend almost drowned and this person had to go save his friend. I guess the lifeguards just couldn't see. Another theory I have is that there's a lot of intoxication with the guests and the employees. Some of these employees could be very well intoxicated with drinking because they seem to be really loose with the alcohol on this Action Park. So we'll get into that a little later. Another incident happened on August 1st, 1982. A 27-year-old from Long Island tipped his kayak on the Kayak Experience ride. He stepped on a grate that was either contacted with or came too close to a section of live wiring for the underwater fans that somehow became exposed, and he suffered an electric shock that sent him into cardiac arrest. Several other members of his family were also injured, and he was taken to a hospital nearby Warwick, New York, where he died later of shock-induced cardiac arrest. This was the first open death that was you can't really cover this one up, and it was disputed as an electric current shock. The ride was drained and closed for investigation. Accounts differed as to the extent of exposed wiring. The part said it was just a nick and it was just an accident of something that happened. And the State Labor Department found the fan was properly maintained and installed and cleared the park of wrongdoing. However, it also said that the current had the possibility to cause body harm under certain circumstances. I find this one really interesting because there's a lot of nicks in this park, it seems like, because there's no proper engineering, like I stated before, and I don't know if there doesn't seem to be proper security on a lot of these rides. And when you say anything goes in this action park, I'm really feeling it off this incident. I'm really feeling it. Another death happened sometime in 1984 where a visitor suffered a fatal heart attack, which may have caused a triggered from the shocking cold water beneath the Tarzan swing, which the Tarzan swing was a steel arch hanging, is something you swing on, in Tarzan movies. It's basically a rope that swings you into the water and you jump off. Was not over the water, but a cushioned area. Some people who let go as soon as they started their swing would land on the cushion and then slide, crash into the water. In the mid-'80s, this started over the water, and if some people hung on too long, or they would scrape their toes on the concrete. Others used the ride properly, but were surprised to find out that the water was very cold. It was cold enough, in fact, that lifeguards sometimes had to rescue people who were surprised by the sudden chill and could not swim. Tarzan Swing and the Cannonball ride in this area were operated by spring water themselves, so that's why it was really, really cold. And some other rides that were pretty notable, watercraft rides, was the Super Speedboat, which had no way of increasing speed. And so people would play bumper boats until they fell off, pretty much, and a lifeguard would have to save them. Again, when you market yourself as anything goes, anything goes. Just saying. And the bumper boats they had usually leaked gasoline, and once they required medical attention because it got on someone's skin, too much of his skin. The Roaring Rapids is another water ride that stood out to me, and many people had fractured femurs, collarbones, noses, and dislocated knees and shoulders in 1984 just from that ride alone. But there's a lot of, again, not properly maintained engineering. Another thing on why I don't think there was proper engineering is because this was the first North American water amusement park there ever been. But also that's not the best excuse for it, but that's my only logic onto why these things are... I'm just coming up with an explanation on why these things are not working properly in this park. As well, I don't know if these engineers are exactly skilled. The ride I really wanted to talk about with you was the Cannonball Loop, which was a water slide built in 1983 that would do a 360 vertical loop, and it was built differently from many water rides in general. So when they first built the ride, the Cannonball Loop, they would pay employees $100 just to test it out, and so many people were in fear and scared to test this out because they didn't know what was going to happen. And soon enough, this ride was probably the most notable ride at the park. The slide was open for only a month in 1984 before it was closed at the Order of States Advisory Board. One worker told the local newspaper that there were too many bloody noses and back injuries from riders, and it was wildly rumored and reported in Weird NJ that some of the test dummies sent down before it opened had been dismembered and decapitated. A rider also reportedly got stuck on top of the loop, so they eventually due to not enough water pressure. They installed the hatch later on. And then the ride reopened a few more times over the years in the summer of 1995 and 1996. And it opened for several days before further injuries forced it to permanently be shut down. This was apparently, though, the only ride that had safety measures, which is odd, but also understandable, but no one could wear jewelry or anything that was dangling. I wanted to show you guys a video of the Cannonball Loop, so here's the video. So yeah, that's a very interesting ride. I never went on something like that ever. It's thrilling, but it's also like all these stories is just crazy. Like I could see back injuries happening so easily on this, but it's weird that this was the only ride where they had proper safety precautions allegedly told beforehand to riders. But anyone who went to the Cannonball Loop, can you guys confirm to me in the comments if that was true? Because I'm not too sure about how the park operated. Now in the next part of this video, I wanted to talk about something that was straight up illegally happened. That wasn't an accident, but was clearly intentional because a lot of people were talking about it. And that was selling illegal alcohol to minors on the grounds. That's right, minors were consuming alcohol and were able to purchase it at kiosks if they wanted to consume, and the park just let it happen. So in conclusion, I find it's illegal to be selling alcohol to minors. B, they found excuses in every death that happened on their rides. And C, none of these rides seem to have, a majority of them don't seem to have proper engineering, and there seems to be injuries and incidents that happened on pretty much all these rides. It makes me question whether Eugene Mewhall had paid out certain people, paid out, people that would come investigate the park, and health and safety, and the police. And we know in today's world that people can get away with anything with money. Even back then, they could have gotten away if they just slipped a good amount of coin. And we see it with people in Hollywood, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was the case here either. I did not watch the Class Action Park documentary, but if you guys have answers to why this was able to happen, I would like to know in the comments below. But some of the things I was reading is that people did come to the park to intentionally, with the intention and fully know well they were gonna get hurt at some point in it. And, that's, some people's cup of tea, and that's, totally fine. I just think they should have done a better job at ensuring that deaths would not happen, okay? It's cool to go out for the thrill and stuff, and there are things in this world where people do for the thrill, and that is totally, I think that's totally fine if you're up for that sort of thing. I'll be honest, I do, even though there's a lot of dangerous stuff going on in this park, I would love to go to this park because it looks like a ton of fun. I just don't condone. I think that the park needed to do a better job with making sure deaths don't happen and lives aren't costed, because I think that's inexcusable, and I don't think they should have covered it up so lightly. And I find it really sick that Eugene and the park management in general would cover up that first death with the 19-year-old and say that they were an employee, so it was okay. And when they really weren't an employee, that is really shady and disgusting in my opinion, that was the story they pulled, so they didn't have to get shut down or anything. Eugene Mewhall is dead now. He died in 2012, but I don't know how many people feel about him because I don't get a good vibe off of him. I find it more like a shady vibe off of him, shady businessman vibe, where anything goes, and in his mind, in his business, anything goes, just like how the park, anything goes, so it's very fitting, I guess. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a ton of fun researching this, and I was just so fascinated by this research today. If you guys want me to do any videos or you have any requests, please let me know below, and I would love to talk about any topic. Until next time, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and much love to you all. Bye!